When was the last time you chose to watch an ad? Like, genuinely chose it. Not because it was running before something you wanted to watch, but because you actually wanted to know what happened next. Now, when was the last time you chose to play a game and you kept playing, even past the point you told yourself you were going to stop? For me, that was yesterday, because I am knee-deep in Pokopia and have no desire to stop. Game designers have figured out something that most advertisers haven't. They have cracked the code on voluntary attention, getting people to show up, stay engaged, and come back without any obligation whatsoever. Nobody has to play, but they do. Billions of people do it every day, sometimes obsessively. Meanwhile, marketers are still desperately trying to figure out how to get people to stop scrolling past or skipping their ads. So today I want to borrow from game design. Board games, video games, playground games, sports, any kind of game. We're going to talk about some specific elements of those that I think have very direct and practical implications of how we build ad campaigns and creative work. And by the end of this, you might not look at an ad the same way again. There's a concept in game design called the magic circle. It was first introduced by a Dutch cultural historian named Johan Huizinga in 1938 in a book called Homo Ludens, which roughly translates to man the player. The term the magic circle was originally pretty literal. Huizinga was just talking about the physical, literal spaces where play happens, like an arena, a card table, a tennis court, places where different rules apply. And then in 2003, game designers named Katie Salen and Eric Zimmerman built on that idea and turned it into more of a design principle and psychological space. It's the moment a player crosses from the real world into the world of a game. The magic circle is the boundary between the world of the game and the rest of reality. When you decide to play, whether it's chess, a video game, a pickup basketball game, you are choosing to enter a world that has its own logic, its own rules, its own stakes. What happens inside this temporary world in this circle has meaning that it wouldn't have outside of that circle. A wooden piece becomes a knight. Touching someone becomes a tag. Points become something worth caring about. And this is a space you choose to enter. You're consenting to the rules. You choose to care about and exist in this world, even if just for a brief moment. So what makes this relevant for advertising? Every great ad creates its own version of a magic circle. Think about the best ads you've ever seen. The ones that captured your attention, made you want to keep watching, made you want to share with your friends. There was likely a moment, usually in the first few seconds, where something happened that made you want to follow along. A visual that surprised you, a line of dialogue that felt off but in just the right way, a situation strange or funny or emotionally charged enough that you thought, okay, I'm in. I want to see where this goes. That's a magic circle forming. The ad established its own world and its own rules, and you voluntarily stepped inside. But most ads don't do this. They announce themselves as ads immediately. There's no invitation, there's no world to step into. They just yell information at you and hope that you're interested in what they're selling. Without that magic circle, you're not part of anything. You're just being exposed to marketing. There's a big difference there that the audience can feel even if they can't exactly name it. So the question that game designers ask is, how can we build the circle? How can we entice someone enough to cross the threshold? There isn't an exact answer or formula for doing that, but the ads that pull it off tend to open with something that doesn't fully explain itself. There's a gap between what you're seeing or hearing and what you understand of it. So your brain naturally wants to lean in to close that gap. One of my favorite games recently was Expedition 33. And the gap in that game between what I was seeing and what I was understanding was so incredibly wide that I was pulled into that story like no other. I wanted so badly to know what was going on that I voluntarily stepped into that world, into that magic circle, any chance I got. Great ads create that same feeling, a desire to be part of what's happening or to understand what you're seeing. One of the most famous ads of all time, Apple's 1984, presented a pretty significant gap. You're thrown into this dystopian world in the middle of a chase scene, and you have no idea what's going on. You have no clue it's an ad for computers yet. It hasn't announced itself as an ad, it has just created this world and invited you to enter. But remember that the world inside the circle has to be worth entering. It has to promise something: mystery, tension, beauty, humor, something that makes us want to come inside. And that's up to us as marketers to create that. The second concept we're going to talk about comes from how game designers think about how to engage players over time. There are two types of motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is internal. You're doing the activity because the activity itself is satisfying. The challenge is interesting, the world is compelling, you want to see what happens next. The reward is the playing. Extrinsic motivation is external. Points, badges, rewards, prizes. The game is giving you something in exchange for your behavior. You're playing to get the thing. Game designers who build around extrinsic motivation can see pretty good short-term numbers. People log in for daily rewards, they grind for loot drops, they show up for limited time events, but the moment the rewards stop, or when the rewards from a competitor are better, those players are gone. The game itself didn't really mean much to them. Games built around intrinsic motivation are very different. They create players who are really invested in the world, the characters, the story, the challenge itself. Those are the kinds of players who recommend the game to their friends, or write fan fiction, or buy a ton of merch, and then continue playing the game for 5, 10, 15 years after. A lot of games employ both of these types of motivation, but the ones that build around intrinsic motivation have much stronger loyalty. And you can probably see where I'm going with this. Advertising that relies on extrinsic motivation can drive short-term behavior. Discounts, giveaways, gamified loyalty programs, like and share to win posts. Those can spike your metrics and boost your engagement numbers. But they aren't building anything long-lasting. Because the second a competitor offers a better version of that, a better deal, your audience is going over there. They were never actually loyal to you. They were loyal to the reward. Free stuff doesn't build brand love. It builds brand tolerance at best. Advertising that creates intrinsic motivation does something different. It makes people actually want to be connected to the brand. Not because of what they get, but because of what the brand makes them feel or what it says about who they are. Think about brands people are genuinely enthusiastic about. Harley-Davidson has customers who tattoo their logo on their bodies. That is some serious brand loyalty, but it goes even further into their own identity. Patagonia has built a following that will pay a lot more for a jacket because of what the brand stands for. Liquid Death is water with a cult following because they made the brand itself incredibly entertaining. None of that was built on a discount or a giveaway. Discounts are simply bribing people for their attention. But enthusiasm is built through creative work that makes people feel something and earns their attention. So to think like a game designer here, ask yourself, are you designing for engagement or enchantment? Because one of those is going to last a lot longer. The third concept is one that game designers borrowed from psychology. In the 1970s, there was a psychologist named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He recognized and named the concept of flow. Flow is a state where you get so absorbed in what you're doing that time just disappears. Athletes call it being in the zone. Songwriters might call it being in the pocket. Gamers call it being glued to the screen at 2 a.m. wondering where the time went. Csikszentmihalyi found that flow has a very specific condition. The challenge of the activity has to be roughly matched to the skill of the person doing it. Too easy, and you're bored. Too hard, and you're frustrated. But when the difficulty is calibrated exactly right, when you're operating right at the edge of your abilities, something clicks. And game designers take this very seriously, employing something called the difficulty curve. A lot of games will start you off easy. They'll teach you one mechanic at a time and let you feel competent. And then as you build confidence, they'll slowly and consistently raise the stakes. By hour 10, you're doing things that you never thought possible in hour 1. But it doesn't feel impossible because the game walked you there. Bad games are either too easy for too long and you disengage because of boredom, or they spike the difficulty way too fast and you quit out of frustration. Rage quitting, as gamers call it. Now let's bring this into the advertising territory. Most advertising treats the audience like they're in the beginner zone permanently. The messaging is simple, the metaphors are super obvious, the emotional beats are telegraphed from a mile away. There's no real challenge, nothing to figure out, nothing to discover, nothing to work for. Put simply, it's boring. And a lot of times, that's not even the creative team's call. It's a client instinct. The fear that if you don't spell it out completely, someone somewhere won't get it. So you sand down the edges. You add the over-explanatory voiceover. You show the product 10 extra times. And in trying to make sure nobody misses the point, you end up making something no one wants to watch. Audiences are smarter than that, though. They know when they're being talked down to. The advertising that hits the flow zone is doing the opposite. It gives the audience something to do, a connection to make, a thought to complete. It trusts them enough to leave a little space. Coinbase ran a Super Bowl ad that was literally just a QR code bouncing around the frame. No voiceover, no explanation, no piece of text that says, scan this QR code. Just the assumption that people would know what to do. And they did. Skittles ads are incredibly strange, sometimes a little unsettling also, but they never justify themselves. They don't over-explain their jokes. They just exist and trust that the audience will self-select and say, yeah, this is my kind of humor. The Economist also trusts their audience to self-select. Their famous out-of-home ads are just a logo and a statement that only smart people would understand. They're trusting their audience's intelligence so completely that that trust is part of their message. That's the zone of flow for advertising. Not so complex that audiences check out, but not so simple that they don't engage at all. Right in that sweet spot where the work respects them. The difficulty curve also has something to say about brand building over time. A campaign can challenge its audience slightly more or in a different way with each execution. That's growing the relationship rather than just restating it a bunch of times. You're creating something cumulative. Each ad is building on the last and you're not starting from zero every time. That's game design thinking. And it's not how most ad campaigns are built, but it's how the best ones work. I'm not sitting here saying that ads should be games. Gamification marketing is its own thing and really doesn't need to be used that often. It's more about the psychology underneath game design. Game designers are very good at understanding what makes people choose to engage. And I think advertisers should learn from them. If you're working on a campaign right now, here are 3 questions to ask. Are we creating a world worth entering, or just delivering information? Are we building genuine desire or just buying behavior? Are we respecting our audience's intelligence or just defaulting to the lowest common denominator because it's safer? Game designers have perfected the art of voluntary attention, and advertisers need to take some notes. If you want to get better at this kind of thinking, building ideas that actually earn attention, I have a course called Big Idea Bootcamp. It's a step-by-step training in creative thinking, how to develop those big unifying ideas that can make all of your marketing work harder. I'll put a link to that in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for more stuff about advertising.